Now we're talking now about our third week, what's called Module 3, and I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions about financing in China. And what do you see as being distinct about the nature of either startup venture financing or trade financing or things like that? Are there some unique characteristics you might like to comment upon?
So this is one of probably the big economic commercial issues that the Chinese government is looking at right now, and that is this financing for big state-owned enterprises as opposed to financing for private companies. And then what we're really talking about here, new entrepreneurial companies. So traditionally in China, all the SOEs and the state-owned guys slash those with the right political connections get the vast majority of the funding. And the private companies, the private sector really, really struggled. And it's part of the reason for the shadow banking sector coming up. What I think is really interesting about the China market as it is now, and again, I say that the Chinese government is trying to address this now by encouraging the big banks to lend more to smaller private companies, is that the only way you could really get funded was through your own private networks, or through venture capital, or through grey lending sort of channels, which is the way it's traditionally been done. That said, it's very difficult because in spite of, I don't know if you'd agree, Terry, but in spite of what you read about the amount of venture capital sloshing around in China, and it's enormous amounts of money sloshing around in China, the amount of liquidity there and venture funding there, unless you have the right background or pedigree or relationships and connections, it's very hard to access that money. So China is still a market where the starting point is distrust. Unless you have a guanxi relationship, people are going to think that you're, untrustworthy and dodgy. So for a young person, a kid out of a province with no particular family background, with no particular educational background, who just happens to have an absolute cracking idea for a wonderful company, they would struggle, in my view, to raise money. As opposed to somebody with the right connections, with the right pedigree, even if their idea was crap, they would raise tons of it. And that's part of the difficulty, the structural difficulty with the Chinese startup funding environment as it is right now.